Hey, good morning. We've been talking all week about the Renegade office. That's right, that office that's different than any other office you've been in. We've talked about why, how, and what. And today we're going to discuss our discoveries of the week. All that and more on today's Antidote.
Stay tuned for today's Antidote, brought to you by the Renegade Success Network. Today's Antidote features a healthy dose of thought-provoking insights and information for business owners, entrepreneurs, leaders, and nonprofit professionals. Each day since March of 2020, this program has offered that one thing to help you continue on your own unique pathway to success. And now, Renegades, we bring you Bob Graham and Tom Brush.
Hey, Tom. It's good to be back in the bunker.
Good morning, Bob. How are you doing today?
I'm okay. How are you?
I'm doing well. I thought for sure we would have 5 days of talking about the Renegade office and you not in your office space.
No, it was just easier today.
Okay.
I like to keep you guessing.
No, that's nothing wrong with that. Keeps the show fresh, let's say.
Hey, you changed your heading on your LinkedIn, I see.
I did.
I see. I'm paying attention.
Yes. I've been toying with the whole idea of how much does Renegade take over my business. So it's interesting. Been interesting.
I like it.
Yes, indeed.
So folks, you'll have to connect with Tom on LinkedIn to find out what his change is.
Sure. And if you do, you want to make sure to follow the Renegade Lantern that I put out every week that talks a little bit about our topic of the week and some thoughts. Usually it's some information that we share here. And sometimes it's just some other thought that our conversation leads in that direction. So
it's really good, folks. It's well worth the read. And lucky for you, it doesn't cost you anything. All you have to do is connect, and then Tom will make it available to you. Boom,
absolutely.
It comes
right to your inbox. Easy enough. Comes right to your inbox.
Yeah, it couldn't be easier.
No, it could not. All right, everyone. Well, good morning and welcome to today's Antidote, our daily broadcast and podcast. Like every week, we have a topic. This week's topic, as Bob shared at the opening, is the Renegade office. And we've been discussing that all week. And we welcome your thoughts and ideas around it. Today is our special day, Bob's favorite day. Because we share our discoveries of the week. Rather than offering our one thing, we share a little bit about what we discovered this week through this conversation. And so if you have things that you would like to share about the Renegade office and what you have discovered about it this week, and whether you think you have a Renegade office or not, whatever the case might be, whether you think this idea is crazy or makes some sense or you're not really sure, we welcome your thoughts and ideas because we know that it'll add value not only to our show, it'll also add value to those who are watching as they can be impacted by the conversation. And all week long, we've been talking about this in the Ring of Renegades Facebook group. And today we will have a post up where you can share your discoveries of the week that could be about the Renegade office, or it could be about something else that you discovered that you think will add value to someone else in the group who is trying to take their next step along their own unique pathway to success. So feel free to comment in there. You can also comment on your social media that you're following this on, whether it is Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, or
LinkedIn Live.
You got a little excited about that. I saw your hands get up, ready. Bob likes to get fired up for the LinkedIn Live. Yes, you can watch it on LinkedIn Live. Another reason why you could follow me, because it shows up every morning at either 7 o'clock when we're on or 8 o'clock. Sometimes we shift back and forth.
And it also shows up in your feed.
It also shows up in your feed. Correct. All right. So what we do every morning, though, we start the show off by our celebrations. What are you celebrating today, Bob?
I am celebrating that it's Friday. It has been a busy week, and I have some plans tonight. I think I have some plans tomorrow, and I'm looking forward to some relaxation time. It's been 12 to 14-hour days since Monday, and I just owe myself some Bob time, some relaxation time, and that's what I plan to do over the next 48, 58 hours. How about you? What are you celebrating?
So I am celebrating that today is episode 599.
It's crazy.
Today's on. It's so hard to believe. And I know we'll celebrate the 600th episode on Monday. So you won't want to miss that. And I think there is, those even numbers are the ones that we celebrate all the time. And yet there's something about 599 that just was fascinating me this morning. And so figured, why not give 599 some love? Those round numbers don't need it all the time.
So we have a national celebration that we have to mark, Tom.
We do.
It's National Ballpoint Pen Day. I would challenge anyone listening to this, anyone watching this, to tell me they have not used a ballpoint pen in their life. That's like the Bic kind, the Unimate, the Papermate. There's all kinds. You've used a ballpoint pen. I know you have.
Certainly.
If I have to go find one to show you what it looks like, I will, because it would take me about 10 seconds, but I know where one is.
If you would like to, you can go do that.
No, I'm okay. You know what we're talking about, though, right? You were giving me a look like you didn't know what we were talking about.
No, I was trying to figure out the whole ballpoint thing. I haven't really noticed.
A ballpoint pen is just a pen that has a little ball, and as the ink comes through the ball, the little opening, that's what you write with.
Yes.
It was a huge advancement. Imagine the feather and quill, and ink and feather, ink and quill. Not so easy.
I don't know. There's something about that.
Can't put that in your shirt pocket and go to a meeting.
No, that would not be very helpful. I wonder I guess they probably had like a little set where they had a top on the ink and something to wipe the feather off, and then
of course.
Forward.
Come on. Haven't you seen like reenactments of the signing of the Declaration of Independence?
But I don't know that I ever really studied what they did with it when they were done, how they transported
it. Usually went in a little like round thing, like a sleeve, and it would just sit on the table.
Okay.
If you go to like Fort McHenry or Monticello or any of those places, and you see the Washington's bedroom, you'll see there's a desk, and on the desk there's a blotter, and then there would be this thing that holds a feather, and you wouldn't think anything of it unless you realize that, don't touch inside there because that's full of ink, probably.
All right, the ballpoint pen. Still can't have a Renegade day, but we can have a ballpoint pen day. A little bitter on that.
Part why I like to bring them up each day now. Just to tweak you.
All right. So we talked a little bit about Washington. You mentioned Washington's office where he did his George Washington.
Yes.
So what about the Renegade office, Bob? What are some of your thoughts from our week?
So my thoughts for the week were that it was really hard to talk about this.
Really?
And that's kind of troubling to a guy who has started to write a book about this topic. So that's my first discovery of the week. Like, maybe I need to go back to the drawing board.
What was so hard about it?
That's a great question. It's hard to get the words clear, and it's very broad. So at one extreme, you have the Renegade office where you invite renegades to share their perspectives. That would be the very soft extreme. At the very far extreme, I think could be that you have a Renegade office where everything is done in a style that is most fitting of that team, of that organization at that moment. So as you like to say, and I'm trying to adopt the language, what's real in the moment? That's a radical shift, because so much of what I've found in teams is what's historically right. Not what's real, hey, this is what we've done for all these years.
Sure. And
how dare you come in? We've always used an abacus. How dare you say we're going to use calculator? How dare you bring this Excel spreadsheet into the game? We just can't do it that way. I mean, I was at a company maybe 3 months ago. They were still using paper invoices and a fax machine. I didn't even know you could find a fax machine. And for all I know, I didn't see it, but they probably used the heated paper that we used at the beginning of fax life. And that to me is not the Renegade office. And in interacting with that company, it was really difficult because that wasn't the technology that the organization I was working with was using. So there was a divide between who was going to adapt to the other person. And in the end, it turned out neither side was willing to adapt. It was too big a shift either way.
Sure.
So there's an opportunity where two companies could have done business together, but they couldn't find the technology match that made it possible. And so if you think about ballpoint pens are really great if you're taking notes, but not so great if you're writing an email or a text message. Really hard to text with the ballpoint pen. And there's something about using a ballpoint pen. Don't get me wrong. I like it. But if you say to me, hey, Bob, can you send me that phone number right away? Yeah, Tom, I can. I'm going to text it to you. I'm going to email it to you. I'm going to Facebook chat it to you. I'm not going to take my ballpoint pen out, write it on a sheet of paper, put it in an envelope, find a stamp, go to the post office and mail it to you because you could have found the phone number 152 other ways by then. And I think that's a very extreme example, admittedly, but I think we in organizations cling to our history so much that while that example sounds completely silly, I would bet almost every organization you run into has some sacred things like that. It's just, no, we've always done it that way. You know, I worked with one company where the Christmas card was always the same thing. And over the years, it was kind of cute in a way, but it was also, as you start to have remote workers, hard to have everyone in a photo if you weren't going to fly them in. And they tried bubbling, getting a picture of each of those people and putting it in. It looked like someone had gone to Photoshop and photoshopped it. That's where you've got to adapt. And I think the Renegade office is where we have an opportunity to say, hey, this worked up to this point, or this worked in a certain way, but now it's a different world. And I think the sad reality is everything's different now. The pandemic affected it. The economy affects it. Technology affects it. Globalization affects it. You can't just do what you always did and be successful the way we thought. Because look at the companies like Corvettes, like Blockbuster that we talked about earlier this week, National VCR Day. There's only one Blockbuster left in the country. Look at, Kodak. Kodak's a great example because they were actually one of their employees gave them a big bulky camera that was a digital camera. I think it was in like 1968 or 71. And they said, nope, we don't. Film's the answer, man. We're not even going there. There was a Renegade idea. There was a Renegade opportunity, and they didn't take it. And as a result, they tanked a business in many regards.
Sure.
And I get it. In the 70s, film was the only answer. And there's probably something right now that you and I are dealing with every day that won't be the answer in 10 years. Maybe
Sure.
it's Amazon. How crazy would that be that in 5-10 years, Amazon's no longer the huge supplier of all the things that people want at their homes. It goes in another direction. I don't know.
Well, if Amazon continues, it doesn't consider, although they are, what's the best delivery method?
Mm-hmm.
I think they have a pretty good system, and maybe there's an instantaneous delivery that someone creates, beam it in to someone's house. I don't know.
They're playing with drones already. They're delivering by drone. And
So
I also look at all the restaurants when the pandemic came that were able to shift to delivery, to curbside pickup, to ordering in different ways. I can tell you that that's not as easy as it looks. Going through that Chick-fil-A line today, that is the thing of beauty, because they figured out that there was an opportunity there, and that's adapting to change. And that's what the Renegade office is. That's what the Renegade world is all about. What are your thoughts? I've talked for 7 minutes and 23 seconds, I believe.
It's pretty good. I think there's a lot in there that I would agree with, and I think was part of it. I think the other thing is, I think the organizations make a lot of cosmetic changes.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what happened in the pandemic. They were cosmetic and they were required. It's kind of like if you had a bruise on your face, you did something to try to cover it up. And
I can't believe you said that. I don't know if you can. Is it there? No, it's finally. Sorry, I have a little thing on my face, and when you said that, I was like, oh, geez, never mind.
Wasn't thinking of that at all. So I think that, they adapted because they had to. They had no other choice. And almost, I think people went kicking and screaming like, Zoom, it's silly. Why would we ever do it? Remote working is crazy. The funny thing about all of that is that many people had been doing. It's interesting. I even had someone commented on my LinkedIn post yesterday about the new way to work. And they said, it's kind of funny because I had been using Zoom for 2 years before the pandemic ever hit. I had been remote for a number of, for 2 or 3 years prior to that. I had been in organizations where we had remote workers for years. And so it was interesting how these new technologies that weren't really that new, now they were new to the person or to the organization. And I think that they thought that was being a renegade. Oh yeah, we're going to do this. They kind of did it because they had to. There was no other option at the point. Teams, I guess, was another thing for Zoom. So there were but the whole idea of being virtual communication, how that may or may not work. Yet I don't think that really defines a renegade office. I think it did 10 years ago when somebody said, hey, you know what? I was working at a place at a college where we had a lot of alumni in New York City. And we were in Binghamton, New York. And so
a 2-hour drive?
Oh, it's 3 hours to the bridge, and then who knows from there.
I'm sorry, Tom. I grew up in Maryland. There's the Chesapeake Bay Bridge where I come from. What bridge are you talking about? Is that the Verrazano or the Tappan Zee or the George Washington?
George Washington.
Okay.
So
just remember, we're not all New Yorkers. Thank God.
Fair enough. Anyhow, and we would, setting appointments with alumni was like, this is the time I can go. This is the time. Are you available or not? There were people who I would try 5 and 6 and 7 times to try to get together based on when I was going to be there. Well, at some point, the university decided they were going to have someone in the city who would be like, I can just run around the city every day. And the opportunity for availability was a lot easier. And that was in 1990 something, 7.
That would have been a fun job.
2007. So there have been people doing this type of these ideas for a while. And at the point that was unique, that, trying to figure out like, okay, how do we deal with meetings? And we did a lot of phone calls and, the video technology wasn't the same. And I think though, even that still is just a piece of it, that when you really get into the Renegade office, you dive into the culture of what's happening and how leaders lead. Because I think that even through the pandemic, there were meetings that were way too long, unnecessary, ineffective. You had performance reviews. You were checking in on people. And I think in a lot of regards, those checking in on the people were as much about were they doing work as how are they doing. And so I think that there was a lot of things that were done that really didn't become the fabric of the office. It just became something that they did as a means to some other ends. And I think that those organizations who have figured out how to truly look at this and have created their own model, I think is the organization, the office that I see as the Renegade office, is that they've really tried to take a hard look at, and they've balanced what are the benefits of their employees and their teams and challenges, and then also the benefits and challenges that has for their customers and clients, and have made hard decisions that were going to impact one or the other. And I think that even being willing to have those conversations and consider it, because the language has always been the customer is always right, which is not a word that I would normally choose to use, right? And I think that we are discovering that that's not always the case. and that mentality usually came at the expense of the organization or members of the team of that organization. And so I think now there's a very different, in some organizations, approach. Some still keep that. We'll do whatever we need to do to appease the customer. I'm not sure that's necessarily the Renegade office approach.
Well, you see that primarily in places where you're manufacturing or making things for people, right? You know, we want our shirts to have the logo on the left side. If it's on the right side, it's wrong. The customer's right. Redo it so it's on the left side. That's easy in that case. But what if you're building websites? What if you're trying to figure out how to improve the supply chain? The customer isn't right because there's no right. There's figuring it out in real time. You know, I was thinking this week when we were talking about the Renegade office, during the course of the week, I tracked how many times in my work day I was dealing with things where I was certain I knew what was going on and I could follow the policy and procedure, and how many times I was outside of that and just figuring it out. The figure out time was about 75%. And that's probably conservative. And the knew what I was doing time didn't feel as rewarding. It's kind of boring. You know, it's like, oh, copy and paste this and send it to the person. Do that. You know, oh, I got to go and make sure that the Facebook is lined up and make sure I got the podcast down. Very rote stuff. The things that if you said to me tonight over a drink, hey, Bob, what did you accomplish this week? I'm not going to tell you, hey, I posted 5 podcasts. I'm going to tell you, well, we had this situation with the customer. It really wasn't going well. And I was able to save it because I realized that we could do this thing and it didn't take us a lot of extra work, but we did have to order something to make that happen. And I found a way to order it. And we found a way to build the customer without the customer realizing that we had to build them for it. That's a huge success. But where is the, you know, how do you even, as I described it, I was like, no one knows what the hell I'm talking about. But that's what the work world has become for a lot of us. It's not widget making. It's dealing with complex problems in real time. Whether the problems are around supply chain, whether they're around the work product, or they're around the people, more and more, it's around the people that we have to interact with because we interact so much more. You know, I'm in discussions every day with someone in Peru who's working with one of these companies.
Sure.
I don't think in 20 years ago that was even possible.
Probably 20 it was.
Yeah, maybe. So
my dad was doing work in South Africa.
Okay.
20 years ago, 30 years ago,
Nice.
40 years ago.
Wow.
So I think that international trade.
You like advanced your father's age like so quickly there. Huh? I hope he's not watching because he'll be like, dude, you just made me sound like I'm 104.
No. 40 years ago. I was almost working 40 years ago.
So Tom, can we tease what we're doing next week?
We can, if you would like.
Okay.
If you shared all your discoveries.
I did. Have you shared yours, not scared yours?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. I think the one discovery that I think I would offer, sorry to delay your tease, is, you know, that just because organizations are doing things that they think are innovative, even though they've been done for years, doesn't necessarily mean that they're a renegade office. That I think a lot of the underlying issues that were existing beforehand that made them not a renegade office are still existing, and that all they have done is provided a few conveniences, and they've done it usually being dragged and tied towards them. There are still ways for them to go to become a truly renegade office where they are considering change, as you sort of shared at the start, on a more regular basis, and that what we've always done hasn't necessarily gotten us to truly where we want to be.
I like that. So next week, we're going to talk about finding renegades. Now, if you think about, we've talked about how to go about what the renegade office looks like, what the renegade leader looks like. this is the next logical step in terms of how do you invite renegades into your organization, into your team. And also, I think there's an element of how do you get the people on your team to embrace the idea that it's okay to be a little bit of a renegade. So that will be a fun discussion. I'm very excited about that. I'm way into that one.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. Well, thanks so much for being a part of our show today. If you have something you'd like to share as your discovery of the week, please feel free to put it in the comments, or you can go into the Ring of Renegades Facebook group. And as I mentioned before, share it there. We'd love to hear what you think about the Renegade office and how maybe even some examples of how your organization has become a little more renegade in the things that they do to help them take the next step along their own unique pathway to success. So we look forward to seeing you inside the Ring of Renegades Facebook group. If not, we will see you Monday morning, 7 or 8.
I think 7
a.m. For our next edition of today's Antidote. Have a great day, everyone.
Guilty every morning.
It's fine. It's fine.
Tom's a very accommodating person. I will tell you all that. And hey, as you head into the weekend, embrace the renegading you. And celebrate that ballpoint pen that you know is sitting in your drawer on your desk somewhere, maybe in your car between the console and the floor.
Could be. All right, everyone. Have a great day and a great weekend. We will see you soon. Thanks for listening to today's Antidote, powered by the Renegade Success Network. The Renegade Success Network helps you confidently create your own unique pathway to success. To learn more about the Renegade Success Network and how you can take your next step, follow us on Twitter, connect on LinkedIn, or join the Ring of Renegades Facebook group. For full details on how you can join our community, go to renegadesuccessnetwork.com. Embrace the renegade in you.